So here's what happens. So the question is this. So God births you, and he gives you certain talents. All of them have unique gifts and abilities. Some that they know, some they don't know. But then God says, I'm going to make Terry a certain way. I'll make every one of them a certain way with unique gifts. Because they're going to grow into these people. You know, and so I'm going to let life and everything happen to them, and they're going to grow into these people. And these people are going to grow into those people. That's how life goes. And see, and don't hate where you are on the stage, because you could not be. I'm making sense. Because when you pass away, you exit the stage. So now, understand this. So now God says, you got to understand, no matter where you are on the stage, I gave you stuff. And now, no matter where you are on the stage, I'm going to ask you to be responsible for the stuff that I gave you. That means these kiddos here have a responsibility to do some things that God has told them to do in their way. Am I making sense? In their way. You're doing a good job, son. You're doing a good job. And they have a responsibility, different, because as life changes, they got a different responsibility, right? Right. So we don't want Caleb holding my hand on stage. I got it there. I got it. I'm making sense. You good? All right. And so now they have to manage their life. But this group can't look at them and say, they're not doing right. Am I making sense? Because they're not where they are. Am I making sense? So we have to recognize God has given us unique abilities and unique skills. Unique abilities and unique skills. He's all right. He's three. I understand it. And so I have to recognize God has given me this gift. So Tay has to recognize with Millie that Millie is not Tay's possession. Millie is Tay's responsibility. And she has to now manage the time she has with Tay. Am I making sense? I mean, with Millie. It doesn't mean that she can't have a good time. It don't mean it can't go on vacation and do all this stuff. But she has to, while she's out there, what is she doing? She's teaching her the word. She's showing her this. She's showing her how to live in her own space, right? Right. And so understand this. And so now, and then they have to manage their time. But this group has to also help mentor them so that, and answer the questions. Am I making sense? So you guys have to mentor these guys. These guys have to mentor these guys. Understand this. But if we don't teach these guys, because you're so busy doing your thing, then you have abdicated your responsibility. Am I making sense? When we need children's church workers, you got to realize this is the future church. And I have responsibility to teach them, because one day I'm going to have to hand it off to them, and they're going to have to run everything. One day, if I live long enough, they're going to be my pastor. If I live long enough, they're going to be my apostle. If I live long enough, they're going to be my bishops. If I live long enough, they're going to be my prophets, my presidents, my doctors. And so I better sow into them right now, because I need them. Am I making sense? So you got to realize I need y'all to get right. And so I need to do my responsibility. Am I making sense? Come on, clap your hands. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Good job, Cairo. Thank you, baby. Thank you. All right. Does it make sense? So now, look at that recognition. Look at that responsibility. And then the third thing is this: resolve. Resolve means this: since I know that everything is God's, and I know I got responsibility, I've got to come to some decisions. I got to make some decisions about how I handle my life, how I handle my stuff, how I handle my mind. Because I realize that I got to manage my life from the time I'm born to the time I walk off the stage. Am I making sense? And so as a steward, as a steward deacon, I got to make sure that I'm always thinking about this is God's. I got responsibility, and I got to make certain decisions now, because one day, according to 2 Corinthians 5, I've got to appear before the judgment seat. And what do I got to do at the judgment seat, First Lady? I've got to receive the things done in the body. That means everything that I did from Millie to Richard, or for Deacon Young, from Millie to, I'm trying to think who was over there, Deaconess Clark, from Millie to Deacon Rudley. I think I was like, somebody over there said, that's what happens. So you got to remember that my resolve is this, that I've got to answer to God for everything. And he's going to hold me responsible because he gave me the stuff. He gave me my 80 years. He gave me my 50 years. He gave me my 100 years. He gave me my 30 years. He gave me my 19 years. And nobody gets to say, I didn't know. Because in the text, he says, I gave you 5 talents. I gave you 4 talents. I gave you 1 talent. And he said, what did you do? So ask your neighbor, what did you do with what God gave you? Now, this is the question you got to think about. What am I doing with what God gave me? How am I managing this time? How am I managing my mind? Am I making sense? Yeah. This is the big stewardship question that many of us don't ask. We think about how am I handling my money with God? And God's like, wait a minute. You thinking way, way too low. How you handling all of you with God? Because it doesn't tell me that I'm going to have to appear at the judgment seat to tell him what I did with my money. It says that I got to, anything that I did in the body, according to what I have done, whether good or bad. This means I got to resolve that I've got to answer to God for everything. Stewardship is knowing that I am responsible. Look at I'm responsible. Where is a towel? Thank you. So now, am I making sense? So I want to broaden your idea. Stewardship is not just about money. Tell your neighbor, say it's not just about money. Two types of biblical stewardship. There is something about how do I handle the financial resources. So there is financial stewardship, but there's also material stewardship. How do I manage the possessions and the spiritual gifts that God has given me? Stop talking about you a prophetess, a bishop, called a pastor, a teacher. God gave you a brilliant mind, but you don't want to teach nobody. God gave, if you're a prophetess, learn your doctrine. Because you need to learn how they operate. Am I making sense? If you're a deacon, learn your doctrine. If you're an elder, learn your doctrine. Listen, because nobody is just a parishioner. We all got responsibility. So I don't get to just be in the car of my life and ride in the back seat. I've got to answer to God for everything that I've done, right? So, Dr. Moody, what is stewardship? How do you define it? 2 Corinthians 4, 1 through 2. Now, the thing I like about this Bible, this sermon, and I really like it. It's very seldom when I say I like my sermons. And I ain't even finished it yet, but I like it. You know why I like it? Because this could be an easy book on stewardship. When we're done, because we're laying it all down and we're arguing it. So when you talk about stewardship now, you're not just talking about, bring me all the tithe, even though we're going to talk about the tithe. Now you're talking about how do I manage God's stuff? I got to recognize, I got to have responsibility, I got to resolve. And so where do we see stewardship in the Bible? Where do we see this idea? Another place, 2 Corinthians 4. Let every man consider us as servants of God. That word servants there is the word, it literally means this, a rower, a subordinate rower. You own a boat. And you got to pull in sync, in line with everybody on your boat. You don't get to be on the boat and everybody else is rowing. And you sitting there having a Coke and a smile. Let a man, 1 Corinthians 4:1, let every man or let a man consider us as servants of Christ. You're a rower. You serve with your hands. Am I making sense? There is no such thing when it comes to stewardship as not serving. There is no such thing as not getting your hands dirty. There is no such thing as not putting your hands and pulling and everything else. And there are times when we say, row, row, pull, pull. And if you out of sync, you slow our boat down. If you out of sync, our boat starts to turn. Yeah, you're disrupting our progress. So listen, stop asking people to be sensitive when you're not rowing. I am sensitive. Our boat crooked because of you. I am sensitive. We ain't going straight. We ain't making it. Come on, can you help? Can you pull? There's a movie that came out I think last year called it was called The Men in the Boat. I think it's called The Men in the Boat. The Boys on the Boat. Boys on the Boat, and it talks about the gold medal team from the United States, the gold medal rowing team. It's just a good feel good, Saturday afternoon movie you can watch. You're like, we all did it. But what's interesting about the movie is this. It tells the story of how this coach took these people who did not know how to operate as a team, and he taught them how to operate as one. And one of the scenes, one of the guys who was very good, he had personal problems. He was very good at rowing, but he had issues with his daddy, issues at home, issues with his upbringing, and everything else. And he thought his issues were going to make the coach treat him differently. And the coach said, because when they got to the Olympics, he said, "You ain't rowing with us." Now, he was one of the better guys, but he said that your personal issues don't make you, don't absolve you from your responsibilities to the team. That seat and that position means something to our team. And if you can't pull your part, then what we're going to do is, your grandson is coming. If you can't pull your part, then what we're going to do is we're going to have to move you off the boat. See it. People say, I don't like that. I think everybody should be on the boat. Well, a servant of Christ means you are a rower, not a sitter. Am I making sense? And the Bible tells you that you're going to have to answer for not rowing. Clear enough. Clear enough. So it says this. It says, let us consider as servants of Christ and stewards of the mystery of God. That word stewards there, it's also the same thing in 1 Peter 4. Each one of us has received a gift. Each one has received a gift. What do you do with your gift? Minister to one another. You don't get to walk around with your gift in your pocket. As good stewards. So we have in 1 Corinthians this word stewards, and in 1 Peter this word stewards. Both of them mean is orkonomos, which means an administrator of the house. If you are a steward, that means this, that God gave you the right and the rule to distribute supplies. And he's going to make you responsible, saying you should have given this person this, you should have given this person this, you should have given that person that. What did you do with my talent? You are a steward. Am I making sense? So get this. I'm a steward, and God calls me to be faithful. I am a steward of what? The manifold grace of God. I can't even say that I'm a good steward and I don't win people to Christ. Because he made me a steward of the grace. That means that there are people that I'm supposed to distribute grace to. But if I'm not distributing grace, I'm not managing my responsibilities well. Am I making sense? Making sense. So now, you've got to understand this. you got to say, not only am I responsible, but I've got to manage everything God gave me. I thought it was just my money, but now it's the grace of God. I got to make sure that I share the grace. I gotta make sure I share my time. I gotta make sure I mentor people. I gotta make sure I help people. And God's gonna look at me and say, hey, why are you on the boat? You say, I thought it was a cruise. I thought it was a cruise ship. No, it's a rowboat. That's why you got a seat, and we put an oar in your hand. And we need you to pull in sync. Am I making sense? Now this jacks up the church because most of us we want the cruise ship ministry, where you go in and you walk around, you walking on there, and the food just magically gets prepared, and the bathroom all clean, and you sit around and you like, do you want to go eat dinner now? No, let's wait a couple of hours. Everything else. No. That's not the kind of, it says you are a rower. Am I making sense? So look at your neighbor and do this. Now, that means you should be operating like this. So that means this. If your arms ain't tired and your back ain't hurting sometimes, am I making sense? And you ain't sweating, you're not a good steward. I'll say it again. If your arms ain't hurting sometimes and your back ain't hurting sometimes and you're not busting a sweat, you are not a good steward. You got to roll. Now, two kinds of stewards in the New Testament. Am I teaching this morning? Dr. Moody, why are you going over like this? Because we've got to change our minds about stuff. Because the reason why we got every issue in the church is that it's one answer: stewardship. If we would address stewardship, it would answer every problem we got in the church. If everybody was rowing, we'd never have a class that wasn't being taught. Our kids would be taught. Our youth would be taught. We would be directing. We would be marketing if everybody was rowing. If everybody's sitting, waiting for somebody to row. And notice your boat ain't going nowhere. You just sitting there. And it's hard to row that entire boat by yourself. Now, so there's two kinds of stewards in the New Testament. When we look at the New Testament, there's a dispensator, which means this person was given the right to manage a household. It wasn't your house. You were just put over the house. We see it when we see Joseph. Joseph was put over Potiphar's house. It wasn't his house, it was Potiphar's house. But he had to manage all the affairs of the house. Am I making sense? So one type of stewardship is that God puts you over something in ministry. The reason why you got a passion for that kind of stuff is because God put you over it. I don't know why nobody don't see we need help with this. Because you're the one that's supposed to be over it. They make me sick. Nobody don't want to help. Right. You're the one that got a passion for that. Row. I'm waiting for somebody to get in because that don't make no sense. I get frustrated every time I come to church. You know why? Row. Now, so there was a dispensator, which was your job was to take the entire household, divide up the supplies, and keep things moving. Am I making sense? Then there was dang it! I said this word. It's an Italian word. It starts with it's a V, but it sounds like a W. Willicus. It's willicus, and it literally means that you're in charge of the estates. That you are over. That you're over the tenants of the entire estate. So literally, your job is to make sure that all the tenants are doing right. You're overseeing the entire estate. So if you can imagine, you over the apartment complex. You don't own it, but you make sure the rent's paid. And you make sure that it's kept up. You make sure the repairs are made. Am I making sense? that it's not yours, but it's your responsibility. If it's raggedy, they're coming to you. If the rent ain't paid, they're coming to you. And you can't be the manager that be everybody's friend. Wait, I'm going to go there again. You can't be the manager and say, no, you go ahead and bring your rent late. No. Because it ain't mine. I don't get to tell you can't do this. What I'm telling you is, it's the first. And I need you to handle that. Well, but my kids, my grandkids, my head, my bank account, my job, and rent is due on the first. I'm not called to understand. I'm called. Am I making sense? So some people get mad when people say, "Hey, you said you're gonna help. Where are you? You said you're gonna be here at 6. Where are you?" I don't want to be pressured. Y'all need to love everybody. I'm being a responsible steward. I'm over this. Am I making sense? This is why Dr. Moody will do things like this. Can you hold this, deaconess? This is why Dr. Moody will do things like this. Dr. Moody will say, "Hey, our budget's behind. Today we're gonna raise $20,000." And people are like, "What?" But you know what I say? Hey, I got to make sure because listen, I am not the owner of this. But I have to answer to God. Am I making sense? So my job is to drive the larger goal and not be your friend. And we're going to all clap when we say, "Hey, we've done it. The tenants have paid. Hey, we've done it. The estate is in order. Hey, we've done it." And we celebrate that. Am I making sense? So now, when we look at the original concept of stewardship, this is interesting because the original concept of stewardship, people talk about stewardship, and they say, I don't, it's got to be all over the Bible. Well, when you look at the book of beginnings in Genesis, you'll see the original concept of stewardship. In Genesis chapter 2. And the Lord planted, verse 8, and the Lord planted a garden in Eden. Who planted the garden? The whose garden was it? Who created the earth? Who created the world? Who created the garden? So now, it's his stuff, right? Come on, stay with me. It's his stuff, right? But then what does he do with his stuff? Verse 15, and the Lord took man and put him where? In the garden. Wait a minute. So it's God's stuff, but he took man and he said, now you're gonna be in it. Just because you in it don't mean you own it. Just because God, do you understand? The Lord put me here. Yes, but you don't own it. He told Adam, what? Your job is to tend and to keep. So wait a minute. I'm in it. I get the benefits of being in it as long as I tend and keep, right? That word tend, abad, which means literally to worship, or to work or to serve. So that means this, that work is not antithetical to grace. Work and effort and service is not a bother to you. Work and service and helping is not they ask for too much. Because it ain't your garden. You were just placed here. You just in it. Am I making sense? And God says, okay, when you in it, you get to get the benefits of it as long as you serve. Am I making sense? Do the work. So he says abed, which means to work and to keep. Shamar, to keep guard. This means this, that stewardship is not just about being responsible, but it's about making sure that I keep guard over what God has put me over. You understand this, parent, because when you have that child, what do? You make sure nobody gets to them. You watch them, and you watch them like a hawk. Nobody better not come at your child. Nobody better not come at your grandchild. Nobody better not do something negative to them. You will jump all over them. Because you see guarding, right? And you see that child as, no, I'm not going to let nothing happen to you. Could you imagine, what if we looked at stewardship that same way? That you say to the house of God, you say to the vision of God, I'm not going to let nothing happen to you. I've got to watch you. I've got to guard you. I've got to be like, no. You don't get to do that in his house. No. Am I making sense? See, stewardship, you got to have an edge to be a steward. You can't be lackadaisical and soft to be a steward. You got to have an edge. You got to say, no. This ain't how we do God stuff. And you got to let people look at you and try to tear up. And you say, and this is how we do God stuff. Well, you need to understand what I'm going through. And this is not how we do God stuff. So you need to be, listen, I'll give you a Kleenex right after we get finished rowing. I'll help you out. Just listen, we in a race right now, so we all sweating. We going for the goal, so we all gonna be tired. If you watch the Olympics and you saw the rowing competitions, and when they crossed the finish line, none of the rowers got up and was like, woo! You know what they all did? Almost passed out. They laid back, sweating, breathing hard, and everybody clapping for them. They're like, Listen, but here's our problem, Richard. Here's our problem, Deacon. We don't understand that victory for the steward means that you cross the finish line, you reach the point, but you're exhausted. So when you watch any of those runs, you know, they didn't catch them right at the finish line and say, hey, Johnny, how do you feel about that? They're like, I had to just finish. I had to start right. I had to do this, that, and the other. I'm just so happy. And they're like, we'll let you catch your breath. Why? Because they had to push themselves all the way through. We don't want to have that posture of stewardship where we work ourselves all the way to the finish line. Notice, what's happening with you right now is as I talk about work, you start pulling back. It's because you don't understand the idea of stewardship. But listen, you will fight over your child. You will punch somebody over your dog. Somebody comes to your dog and kicks your dog. It'll be, you won't even, you'll black out. Somebody comes up to your grandbaby and grabs them by the head and pushes them down. Your child walking through the street, somebody kick their leg, they fall. You're not gonna be like, why did you do that? You're gonna be like, fight now, ask questions later. It don't matter how, and now, so think about it. So stewardship is this point. Now, and listen, stewardship is this point where you got to say, wait a minute, I've been thinking about stewardship all wrong. Because the only way I think about defending, guarding, and working is when I see it's my possession. But if I don't have any possessions, then I don't do it. But when it's all God's, when my child is just given to me and it's like God said, watch over this child for these umpteen years. Because when you get to heaven, they're not going to have a Moody plantation where we all get together. That parent's going to be Sister So-and-so. You're going to say, oh, I love you so much. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy that you came in. But your mama not going to be up in heaven saying, y'all come on, eat now. See, I got quiet right there? It got quiet because I'm messing with y'all's idea of heaven. Y'all think it's a big family reunion. And it is one, but it's a heavenly family reunion, not your earthly family. Your mama was just a steward over you. Your daddy was just a steward over you. You're just a steward over your children. That's why you try to make them worshipers, not make them little mini-me's. Because if I'm a steward over them, then we will meet again in heaven. If I don't make sure you're a steward and a worshiper, then what I'm going to produce is a mini-me. And then when we get to heaven, that relationship is not going to transfer into eternity. Let me go here. Now, when we talk about famous quotes, I want you to understand this. These are great theologians. What did they say about the idea of stewardship? Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King, Martin Luther. He said this: I have had many things in my hands and have lost them all. But whatever I placed in God's hands, that I still possess. A.W. Tozer said this: a man's treasure can be defined by the answer to these 4 questions. What do you value the most? What would you most hate to lose? What do your thoughts turn to when you got free time? And what gives you the greatest pleasure? That tells you your treasure. So when you answer those questions and you come up with a little Leroy, God says that's your treasure, not the kingdom. Am I making sense? When you ask those questions, it's not saying you shouldn't love your kids, your grandkids to death, but you don't worship them. Am I making sense? You want the best for them, and you will fight for them. But what do I value the most? I want to go to heaven. Because if I make a bunch of Moody's and I bust hell wide open, and we're not gonna have no suite in hell. The Moody suite. Am I making sense? So I've got to ask myself. I've been valuing the wrong thing, because I worry about my kids more than the kingdom. I worry about my money more than I do the kingdom. I worry about my possessions more than I do the kingdom. John Tillison said this: he who provides for this life, but get this, but takes no care for eternity, is wise for a moment, but a fool forever. See, this is stewardship stuff. Because can you imagine all the stuff you worried about? And God said that's not even transferring to eternity. You don't get to get your wood floors in heaven. You don't get to have your nice set of furniture in heaven. You get to have your nice car in heaven. It does not go with you. The minute you die, somebody's gonna get that. You ain't gonna be cold real good, and somebody gonna be passing the keys, and you always put premium gasoline in it, and they gonna put regular right that day. You ain't gonna be cold real good. They're gonna be eating hamburgers and French fries on your premium leather. Ketchup packets everywhere, old French fries in the back seat, potato chips, all that stuff you was watching over. Watch. Missionary Jim Elliot said this. I love this. He says, he is no fool who gives, listen to this, who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. You're not a fool when you give what you can't hold on to. You can't hold on to it anyway in order to gain what you can never lose. This is stewardship. Making sense, right? So now, when we look at the purpose of stewardship, everything belongs to God. Psalms 24:1. The earth is the Lord and its fullness, the world and all that dwell therein. Everything belongs to God. Stewardship, everything belongs to God. Stewardship, everything belongs to God. Isaiah 45:18. He says, thus says the Lord, who created the heavens. Who is God who formed the earth and made it? Who established it? Who did not create it in vain? Who formed it to be inhabited? I am the Lord, and there is no other. God says, I made this world. So when you want to go on vacation and you sit on that beach, you look at that sunset, God said, I did that. You didn't do that. When you sitting there drinking that Mai Tai, God says, I put all this together. This is my world. When you're flying in your first class seat, he's saying, I gave you the money for this. I gave them technology for this. That's why you're comfortable. I did this. That you think the satellite is flying your plane. I'm the one keeping it up. I did this. So, Job 41 and 11. God says, who has preceded me that I should pay him? God like, who went before? Where do you think this stuff comes from? Everything under heaven is mine. So that means your money, your time, your talent, your mama, your daddy, your children, your dog, your house, your car, everything belongs to God. Am I making sense? Now, I'm going to show you something. So now, our job here in Acts 17 is to glorify God. So what I got to do while I'm living in between Millie and Deacon Young, in between Millie and that side of the stage, I've got to make sure that I live and breathe in God, because I'm a worshiper. My life is about worship. And if I'm not clear on this, what happens, Caleb, is this. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to start piling up my stuff. And then when I pile up my stuff, I'm going to tell God what he can't have. I'm going to date. I'm going to get married. We're going to have kids. And then we're going to worship those kids together. And can't nobody better not mess with them. You better not say nothing about my kids. And you don't realize those little beings you worship are going to leave you. They just have to be tall enough or cute enough. And they're going to be like, at 18, they're going to be like, you're going to say, you coming home to visit daddy, mama? No. I think I'm going to stay up here. You coming, you doing what? Yes, Deaconess. Maddie's going to say, Grandma, I ain't coming home. Deaconess is going to say, but listen, it's Christmas time. I'm making all your favorite meals. And Maddie's going to say, well, Leroy. Leroy. That's right. And you got this little Royce one day. All of our kids and grandkids are going to look at us and say, That's why a lot of us get these big houses with the hopes and dreams that they're going to come back. All of them going to come back for the holidays. And then you be like, you coming home for Christmas? Well, I can come by there. Come by. We'll pick up a plate from you. Hold on, let me call you back. Let me see what we're going to do. Let me see if I can come by there. And you're like, come by? I still got your room ready. Yeah, but me and my wife and our kids, we can't fit in my room. So we're going to come by. And you get to the point where your grandkids they so busy, you be like, you coming to visit grandpa, grandma? They be like, nah, I got track, football, theater, soccer, chess. And then you be mad, walk around with your lip poked out when you raised them to grow. You raised them to go. And now you mad at them because they don't circle back around you. Oh, some of y'all, I'll mess with y'all right now. Okay.
Thank you for worshiping with us today. If you liked this message, you can find the rest at cmllcstore.com. We invite you to join us again for our extraordinary worship services every Sunday at 10:30 a.m., Sundays at 4 p.m., and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Central, where Dr. Moody teaches how to understand the Bible, and you can get all your biblical questions answered. We look forward to connecting with you. We ask that you subscribe to the R.O.C.K ATX on YouTube and follow the R.O.C.K ATX on Facebook and Instagram to stay connected to all the R.O.C.K is doing. You can also get connected on our website at therockatx.org. Again, thank you for worshiping with us, and be blessed.